Welcome to Our View, the podcast, where we're changing the conversation about disability one story at a time. Here at Our View, we're all about education, awareness, and shifting perspectives. With each episode, we dive into honest, meaningful conversations with individuals from across the disabled community, amplifying voices, sharing lived experiences, and challenging the way society sees disability. Because disability isn't a limitation, it's a part of the human experience. So pull up a seat and join us as we broaden the view and bring real, powerful stories into focus. This is Our View. I would like to welcome everyone back to another episode of Our View, the podcast. I'm your host, Arthur Aston, and I'm joined today with my guest, David Kaufer. So, David, thank you for joining me for this episode today.
It's my pleasure, Arthur. Thanks so much for having me on your show. I'm really excited about this.
Yes. Yes. So, to get started, can you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your story with us?
Yeah, happy to. I have 20-year-old twin boys, been married for, 28 years, living in the Seattle area. It's been a really wild journey. So, the twins, one was diagnosed on the autism spectrum just before his third birthday. We noticed, a lot of regressions and changes, particularly as they related to his twin brother, who was exceptional. He was gifted. He was counting to 100 at age 3. And Stone, who's the autistic son, always had challenges speaking. Communication was his biggest challenge. So that's become a big part of my life. Professionally, I've managed a digital marketing agency, which gives me the flexibility to be a very involved dad, be involved in therapies, be involved now in his school. I'm actually his communication partner, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So spend a lot of time with him, but it's a passion of love. He became unlocked just over 3 years ago. For up until that time, he had no reliable way to communicate. He had limited speech, but it was very unreliable. And as we learned later, it was not always accurate. He would say things like no pizza when we found out he actually wanted pizza, things like that, because of a brain-body disconnect. That really is the heart of the challenge a lot of the non-speaking autistic community faces, is that for so long it was viewed as a cognitive issue, and it's anything but that. It really is a brain-body disconnect. That's the major issue, motor planning. So that's what I do now is work with Stone. We advocate and we educate others.
That's great. I'm so glad to get into this conversation with you and to learn more about Stone. So, can you share, is there anything else you would like to share about him and his story?
Oh, there's so much, Arthur.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, because it's a remarkable story. But as I found meeting other families, being involved in the community, it's one that's been replicated across the country by others. But Stone, like I said, since he was diagnosed and had communication challenges, he was perceived by others, not necessarily by us, but have to be intellectually delayed, developmentally delayed, because he couldn't respond to standardized tests. And like I said, the communication piece wasn't there. So he was placed into intensive education programs, isolated from the general education program for the most part. Leading into middle school, they put him on the track. They called it the life skills program, where they basically told us, yeah, we just don't think he'll be able to continue and to learn from an academic standpoint. So we think he needs to learn basic life skills like how to do laundry, things like that, rather than pursuing academic. And it was heartbreaking because I knew in my heart that he was smart. I knew that he was capable of learning again, but we didn't have a way to demonstrate that. We had no proof of that. Now you fast forward to, like I said, about 3 years ago. It was September of 2022. A friend of mine had reached out to me and told me about this methodology that's called spelling to communicate. A friend of hers wrote a book about their journey called Underestimated. Their son was very similar to Stone, again, an intensive ed life skills program. They learned this methodology and it unlocked him. He'd be able to communicate, found out how not only intelligent, but just brilliant he was. So we decided to pursue it. And we went down to San Diego, where the spelling center was. The recommendation came who to work with. And from day one, it was life-changing. He was able to show, and I've got a visual. This is what like a letterboard looks like. And it really starts with him just being able to point to the letters. It's really basic. But it requires a lot less demand on fine motor skills that are required for most types of communication. So students like Stone are able to point and spell and respond. And like I said, it unlocked him, and he went from, at that time, being in the intensive ed program. His special education teacher told me he didn't think he would be capable of anything beyond a first grade curriculum. Now he's in a high school, a private high school, receiving one-on-one education in different classes. He's taking biology. He just finished Algebra 2. He went through algebra, geometry, Algebra 2. He's been taking environmental science, world history, all the high school requirements. And his goal and his vision is he wants to graduate and go to Harvard. So that's the goal.
That's wonderful. When you were just talking about Algebra 2, I just had flashbacks of my high school days. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, not a fond memory for most of us. I'm not a math
No,
guy
no,
either. So
math is not my thing at all. I could write a paper all day long, but just
same.
don't give me a math problem to figure
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
But
right with you. It's he was,
yeah.
he I don't know if he'll continue in the math. Again, his area
Hmm.
of interest is in law. He
Oh,
wants to
great.
study law and he wants to help advocate for other non-speakers. He wants to push for change and reform in the education system, specifically so other students don't have the same experience that he had.
That's great. And I wanted to bring up two things that you mentioned, the brain body disconnect. Like
Yeah,
that's so true. I love the way that you explained that. And also the other part was where you were saying how others were perceiving things about him, but you as a family were just like, oh no, like we can figure this out. We may not know what it is right now, but we can figure it out and make it happen, which is the story of so many families, so many parents who have to advocate for their children who have disabilities, who just, they know their child and they don't give up on their child. And
that's it.
it's really I when you said that I was like, yes, like that's how, the world may have seen certain things, and his teachers and other people, doing evaluations and all those medical things, they may have seen certain things, but you as parents and as a family, we're just like, okay, like that's fine, but we're going to figure this out. And that's so true in the resilience of families in who have family members that live with disabilities and different diagnoses. Uh, we're really, we're a different kind of group of people where we know how to advocate, we know how to fight for things, and really work toward things that we know are capable, we're capable of doing. So I wanted to make sure I brought that up, that I did pay attention to when you said
Yeah,
that.
I appreciate that. And it's funny. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's a different world that you live in when you have a child or relative or a loved one with whatever type of disability, right? And if
Hmm.
their needs aren't being met,
Right.
and it's not necessarily something. you want to do, right? Like I don't think
Right.
anyone wakes, like it's a lot easier if you don't have to do it. That was
Yes.
kind of my assumption for too long, frankly, right? That the system was set up that they'd take care of my son, that they had the resources in place, that they would, do all the things to help him have as good of a shot at a healthy, productive future as possible.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, that's not the case. That's not the way the system is set up in most cases for, again, all types of disabilities. A lot of times, I think, and I'd be interested in your perspective here, it seems that the focus is on doing the minimum amount required, right? Like making sure that they can check the boxes to say, we're going to meet this accommodation or do whatever. And that's
Hmm.
it, right? Like check the box and then move forward, not really thinking about the truly individualized needs that each student or individual, person has.
Yes, and that is they the euphemisms and things that people use to describe, different diagnoses and, special needs. Like our
Right.
needs are not special. We just want every opportunity that everybody else has. Like
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
It's nothing special. I don't want nothing extra, nothing special. I just
Right.
need what everybody else has access to.
Access. It's
And
access. Right.
yes, yes. And that's it. That's all. It's just really and like you said, nobody, you don't plan to be that person to have to do it because you think that things are set up in a way that, okay, they'll take care of it, like you said, and your child or your relative will be okay. Um, but then it goes back into what you just said as well as every person is an individual. So there
Right.
could be 50 people with the same diagnosis, and every single one of these individuals is an individual, and they have different needs that, you'll have to do things differently to educate them, for example, or to set them up to, be able to live life. They all have different needs, but there's nothing special about their needs. They just have you just have to do things differently for them,
Yeah.
and you can't group everybody together with my diagnosis of spina bifida. There are some people with spina bifida who can't use braces like I do to walk. They
Okay.
just
Right.
they don't
Yeah.
have that, that's just how their diagnosis impacted them.
Right. Right. Their body's
Yeah,
different. Yeah.
right.
It's just,
Everybody is
yeah.
different, and that is so true with every disability diagnosis. So I'm always glad to have these conversations to talk about these things.
So did that ever like, the fact that there are kind of like those different levels of
Hmm.
ability, we'll call it, right? Like
Hmm.
ability to walk, in your case with braces, you ever get people to say, well, you're not as disabled as that person? Or like, how sometimes you get people or who would question
Yes,
the
yes,
disability,
it
which
it
blows me
happens.
away. I was curious, like if that's happened in your world as well.
It has, yes. It's not so much as I've gotten older, but
Right,
yeah, definitely. Uh, when I was younger, it has happened for sure. And it's like we're not in a game here of,
right.
who has it all
Compare who
worse or
has it
better.
worse or
Yeah.
right,
Like
right,
that's not what we're here for. But it definitely has happened. And it's just again to educate people because to me that goes to say that they're not educated on certain topics and how certain things work.
right.
So to make sure that we're doing things like this with my podcast, with your podcast, to
Yeah,
educate people about these different topics, and just to bring that, as your as your logo says, the lighter side of the spectrum, to bring
right.
to
Yeah,
bring
because it
light
could be,
to certain
it,
topics.
I don't want to be a downer about it, right? Because there are a lot of challenges, as you
Yes.
know, yeah,
Hmm.
as well as anyone. There's a lot of challenges that come with it, but challenges in life. But there's so much, joy that also comes from overcoming those challenges, right? And proving the skeptics wrong. And that's one of the biggest motivators I know for Stone
Hmm.
is every day he thinks about all the doubters, all the people who didn't presume competence,
Yes.
didn't think he was smart. He had to hear the comments. He couldn't say anything because he wasn't able to, right? So for years, he had to absorb these perceptions, these comments, including from teachers, believe it or not, that he shared.
Hmm.
That's awful, right?
Yeah.
But to his credit, and obviously I'm an incredibly proud dad, um, he used these comments and he used these challenges to strengthen himself,
Right.
not to break him. It strengthened him. Like he is emotionally, mentally strongest person I know, hands down.
Hmm.
He has the best, I kind of call it the best F off
Yes.
mindset you can have. He's because he's heard it all, right? And he's like so
Right.
comfortable in his skin. He accepts himself. He knows who he is. He knows his gifts, his capabilities,
Hmm.
and he's just kind of like, I could take it or leave it. I don't care if he doesn't care if he's liked or whatever. He's just
Right.
going to do what he wants to do, and I think that's a great mindset for all of us.
It
Yeah,
is. It
right,
really is. And it's, and for myself as well, like living with a disability, it really, you have, like you said, the teachers and the people who you would never think would, uh, talk in a negative type of way that do, they end up doing it. And, so you have to develop that tough skin and that F off type of
right.
mentality type of
It's
thing
probably, I mean, it's
sometimes. But
survival to a degree, right? It's emotional survival to do it.
right.
Otherwise, it would break you probably.
Yes. Yeah. So it's all, that's great. I'm really happy to be sharing your family story and Stone's story with everybody here today.
Yeah.
And you started mentioning the it's called the spelling to communicate methodology. Can you
Yes.
share a little bit more about that and how it works? You showed the
Yeah, like the
letterboard.
letterboard. Yep, I
Yeah.
got it right here. Yeah.
Yes. Can you just talk about, how
Sure.
it works and yeah.
Yeah. So back in, but again, there's kind of a few different kind of related methodologies that are under this umbrella that I kind of call cognitive communication. I've coined that term. Rapid prompting method. There's spelling to communicate, the spelling methodologies, but they're all basically the same. And it starts with being able to point spelling letters, respond to questions, but using the gross motor skills that's attached to pointing, right? So pointing is a gross motor skill. All you have to do is basically control your shoulder and your finger to point to the letter. It's very different than typing. It's different, obviously, for speaking, the fine motor skills that are required there. So it starts with stencils. I don't have a stencil board here. I was looking to see, but basically it starts, Arthur, with the individual with a pencil or a pen poking through, like so that they hold up just like the laminate letterboard I just showed you. It's a stencil letterboard, and then they poke the letters. So that way you get the tactile feedback. And it's basically training them. They call it training the motor. So it's similar. I'm sure you've had different levels of physical therapy or occupational therapy, or people out there, if you've golfed or what, any type of motor thing, like, it's eye-hand coordination, it's practice. So this is practicing poking the right letters. Cognitively, they know what they want to say. This gives them an outlet to say it. And it starts with just because there's, again, the brain body disconnect is so strong with a lot of these people that they have to kind of, again, learn the process. And you don't want to put too heavy of a demand on the brain. You want to kind of build up that skill over time. So it starts just by reading lessons, asking them to spell words that are in the lessons, and they spell it. And then you kind of move up to saying, okay, you can ask questions from the lessons, really basic, and they answer those. And over time, as the skills develop, you get to the point where you can ask them open-ended questions just about anything, right? Like, how was your day? What did you do today? What do you think about the 49ers chances in the Super Bowl? Whatever it may be, right? Like you can get to that point. And that timeline though it really varies on individual because like we said, everyone is different. Some have more severe motor challenges. Some stay on the stencil letterboards for a long time because it's really hard. But in Stone's case, he moved. They kind of graduate from this poking the letterboards to the laminate letterboard, poking at that and spelling out that way to the keyboard, And so most of Stone's communication is sitting with me here, and I hold the letterboard, and he just types and writes and does everything just with the keyboard.
Wow, that's really great. That's I wanted to I've heard of it, but I wanted to share that with everybody to just get a better understanding of how it works and going like you said from the poking at the letters to the laminate board to then to the keyboard, how that all the transition between those, how that all works. So thanks for sharing that.
Oh, happy to. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the goal, of course, for all of them is independent communication. They all want to be able to communicate independently, have a keyboard placed in front of them where they can respond. And a lot of spellers, they call them, or cognitive communicators, do get to that point, but it takes a lot of practice because, again, there's dysregulation that can happen in the body, and that dysregulation can really affect the motor. And by having a communication and regulation partner, which is really my role, like I said, I just hold the keyboard. I don't have to move it. I don't have to make any adjustments. But in our case, like I said, Stone likes to hold my hand underneath it, and I hold the keyboard. And it's like grounding. It just kind of grounds him and lets him focus on what he's saying. Whereas if the keyboard is on a stand, he just has to concentrate that much more because he doesn't have that same level of connection or confidence as he does. And I have no doubt we're going to get there. I mean, it's just going to take time and practice, like with everything else. And he's making some progress. We've been practicing that a little bit here and there where we can. Frankly, it's just hard because we're just so busy with life and schoolwork and all kinds of other things that it's just, there's so much that you want to be able to do now that the world has opened up.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Um, so the next question in our pre-conversation before recording and getting to talk about being on the I guess on the podcast. You mentioned that you and Stone completed the Autism Advocacy Tour.
Yeah.
Yes, can you share with us what that was about? And is there a plan to continue this tour in the new year?
Yeah, no, great question. Yeah, so yeah, we called it kind of like our great autism advocacy adventure and tour. And it was back in September. And it really started with a speaking opportunity that came my way from a former colleague. One of my goals is to get out and do more public speaking, whether it's in front of schools, organizations, from an educational standpoint. And she had said, "Hey, I'm working with this organization. Has nothing to do with autism, but they're looking for kind of an inspirational keynote speaker." And she'd been following our story, and she said, I'd love to see if you guys would be interested in attending, speaking." And it's in Atlanta in late September. I said, "Sure, sign us up, any opportunity." And I'm like, if nothing else, like, yeah, it'd be fun to take Stone to Atlanta. He'd never been there. And then once we got the speaking gig, it was like, well, that's a long way to go just for one speaking gig, from Seattle. So what can we do to really maximize this? And again, Stone had indicated an interest in doing more advocacy. So I decided to say, well, we're on the East Coast. Why don't we see what else we can do? And so we ended up going from Atlanta, and we had an opportunity to meet up with a number of other non-speaking families and non-speakers who some of whom we knew, others we didn't. It was kind of like almost a spontaneous get together in Atlanta. The day after happened to be the day after our keynote presentation, which was great. And from there, we went to Washington, D.C., where I had set up a number of meetings, primarily with Washington State local representatives with staff members, as well as the senators from Washington State, just again to educate them about Stone's journey and the communication rights. The fact that one of the things I didn't mention earlier is that once we began this journey, once we found out that he can communicate this way, of course we were excited and we're like, we got to get these letterboards in his classroom and teach, one of the para eds how to use it so he can communicate. Like he's never been able to communicate in school. The school district said no, they would not allow it. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And they use as their rationale a positioning statement that was put out and still exists today by ASHA. That's ASHA. That's a speech language therapy association. But they have a positioning statement against this methodology. They say that it's harmful. They even go into saying it's dangerous because they claim that it takes away from the individual's ability to communicate on their own, even though 99% of these people who are using it have no means to communicate in the first place. But this is the positioning statement that school districts are using to deny letterboards. And this is a huge issue, as you can imagine. So that's one of the things we wanted to talk to Washington, D.C. about. Like, they have a right to communicate. Communication is a fundamental human right. So it was great. We set up the meetings. We had a chance to meet with one of our local congresswomen who's a former pediatrician. So that was a great connection. She had never seen this before, and Stone was able to sit and communicate with her. She was able to see him communicate and talk to her, and it was perfect because she got to see in person. As she's able to say, hey, you should get in front of the Pediatricians Association and some other things. And it was just a great opportunity, and great for Stone to kind of see in person and be part of lobbying and advocating. Like I said, there's no way 3 years ago, if you would have told me we'd be sitting in like our representative's office and Stone would be like sitting there talking to someone, I'd be like, you're nuts. There's no way that's going to happen. And then from there, Arthur, we went to New York City. I have connections. My background's in corporate communications and PR. So I happen to know someone who is at a very large communication and PR firm in New York City who'd been following our journey, and they invited us to present to their employees in a worldwide forum and tell our story, talk to the employees about communication rights and Stone's journey. And so that was kind of the icing on the cake was being in at the World Trade Center and presenting and talking, and the mic drop moment was at the end when the employees asked Stone, how should we talk to our neurotypical kids in terms of how to interact with you? And Stone said, just teach them to be kind, let them know we hear everything, even when they call us retards. And that just kind of left everyone just, kind of
Wow.
stunned in silence, right? Like,
Wow.
wow, yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah, we hear everything. That's wow. It's really I love New York City. When you said that, I was like, yes.
Oh, it's
You
it's
got to go to New
awesome.
York. Yeah, that's living in Jersey. I get there quite often in the warmer months of the
Yeah,
year.
right. Yeah, this isn't the best. Although Christmas, I've been
Christmas is
looking
the
at
best
the
time.
holidays is kind of cool to be
It's
there.
the best time, but it's very crowded, and so you have to really
Oh,
be
that's a good, yeah.
prepared. You have to be prepared for the crowds. So yeah, I'm still trying to get there before the tree is while the tree is still there before the end of the year. But
I would,
but
yeah.
yeah.
I had the opportunity once years and years ago. I got to take a kind of like a business trip this
Mhm.
around this time of year, in and out sort of a thing. But it was so cool, to
Yeah,
check it out. But Stone loved it, which again, it was really kind of funny because the perception is, of course, that if you're autistic, like it would be too overwhelming, right?
overwhelming. Yes, yeah.
But he thrived on it. He said he loved the chaos. He just couldn't believe just everything going on. And yeah, he wears noise canceling headphones, which helps.
Hmm.
But he processes things really well. And
Yeah,
yeah, it was.
yeah. It
You'll
is a great
appreciate this,
place.
Arthur. We were taking the cab from, so we took the train from DC. We thought that'd become a fun way to go into Penn Square, and just took a cab, and we were in a hotel, Times Square. And in the cab ride, he got to hear the cab driver roll down his window and scream at a pedestrian, "F off, you ale!" And I said, "Well, Stone, you just got the full New York experience."
The
And he was
full New
laugh.
York
He
experience.
he
Yes.
loved it. He absolutely loved it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's great. It really is from the one opportunity you had to go to Atlanta, you turned it into so much more
Oh yeah.
to extend that trip and to extend uh your mission to, educate and reach as many people as possible, and meeting with the representatives and lawmakers in Washington, D.C., who represent your state of Washington. That's great. That was
Yeah.
really cool to hear. Because that, again, I really believe in, sharing our stories. That's how we make changes. Because, as you said, the one woman, she's the former pediatrician, you said, right? So,
Yeah, exactly.
and not knowing about, anything that you were doing, but then saying, oh, you have to get him in front of this group of,
Right.
of other people. And, uh,
And
that's really how we make changes.
one of the staff members for a different representative is a former speech language pathologist, SLP.
Wow.
So he was
Wow.
very interested in this, and he was mortified when I told him about the speech about Asha's position against it. Because again, same thing. He got to sit there. He saw Stone spelling. He saw him communicating. He's like, "Ah, this is awesome." I'm like, "Yeah, guess what? Your professional association's against it." He's like, "What?" Like, that makes
Wow.
no sense. So that was, again, it's just planting seeds, right? That's
Hmm.
that's a big part of what we are trying to do is planting seeds.
Yes, that's so true. That's such a great way of putting it. And then, hopefully they will grow and
Yeah, it's going to take
yeah,
time. These things
take
don't
time.
happen overnight.
Right.
We
And
know
keep showing up. That's the thing. We keep showing
keep
up in these
showing up.
spaces, and yeah.
And that was the second part of your question. You asked, are there any future plans? Not in concrete yet in terms of
Hmm.
dates, but will it happen? Absolutely. I mean,
Yes,
we came back. I'm like, Stone, that was the first, I'm sure, of many trips, we're going to be taking back there and
absolutely.
elsewhere, over however many years in the future. That was just kind of, that was the first step and kind of the
Yeah,
introduction to this new world. And it couldn't have gone any better, honestly. I mean, it was really special and really meaningful.
that's great. Yeah, I was excited to hear more about that when you mentioned it. I wanted to see what it all involved, and sounds like a very productive and time well spent.
Well, it's a reminder of just kind of getting back to what we were saying earlier about advocacy.
Hmm.
Um, it takes some work, but not as much work as sometimes we think it would take. It takes effort to do
Right.
it once you put
Yes.
yourself into it, but it's so rewarding. And I guess that's one of the message I would just want to, leave with your listeners and viewers is that it's worth it. And advocacy doesn't
Hmm.
have to be going to DC, right? I
Right.
mean, it could be going to your school board or
Hmm.
your state level or whatever it may be in terms of advocating for rights, righting the wrongs that we know exist there, particularly today when we're seeing a lot of these rights under attack and a lot of
Hmm.
the funding that helps support these services and these laws being slashed, and not being prioritized, at least on a federal level, unfortunately.
Hmm. Yes, and like you said, it doesn't have to be going directly, to Washington, but to start locally and in your communities, at your school board, in your state. Reminds me of what I was sharing with you earlier, for those who have been longtime listeners of the podcast, with Jake's Place, the organization that I started working for and building the inclusive playgrounds. having a law passed in New Jersey that now, because of that law, we have 97 new inclusive playgrounds coming to New Jersey. Like that
That's
is
amazing.
so so amazing. And we just got an email. I got an email today. We're recording this December 15th about a law that was passed in Georgia recently, where all of the elementary schools that build playgrounds will have to be inclusive playgrounds.
Oh, that's
And that's,
great.
yeah, and that's one of the groups working on that. They had reached out to us because they heard about our law in New Jersey. So they reached out to our nonprofit about a year or so ago, and we've had conversations with them about it. So yeah, so all the
I-
elementary schools in the it's not the whole state of Georgia, but in one county in Georgia. So
Hey,
that's
that's
a definite
something.
start. That's a definite big start. To reach that population of students and communities in that one county. So change is possible, and it takes effort, as you said, and if you can get a good group of people to support you and behind you to back what you're doing, it's all possible, and getting into the right spaces and places to have these conversations is so
Well,
important.
but the other thing I was going to say is, when you're advocating these areas, I mean, this is like inclusive playground. How can you be against that? Like who would
It's
be
ama
against,
and
right?
it's
Like who could be against
amazing.
it?
It's amazing how they show up. It's you find them somehow.
I mean, I guess it's
It's
the
real.
same thing like who would be against a non-speaking autistic student suddenly being
Right.
able to communicate? Yeah,
Yeah.
they're out there. The haters are out
Yeah.
there,
We get
unfortunately.
that. We in the process of fundraising for the playgrounds, we got that question so often. Like, who would fight against this? Who would be against this? And sure enough, you wait long enough, it's like, oh, there they are. They
So,
show up.
but what
It was the
would you?
money, mostly was the money because they cost so much money,
Yeah,
$650,000 now. And that was the last one we fundraised for was in 2019, and it was $650,000.
yeah. So you know,
They opened one last year in 2024, and it was $1.2 million.
yeah,
So, and it all depends on the size of them and
the
different,
equipment.
yeah, the
Yeah,
equipment, different things that you do. So, like on one
yeah.
of our playgrounds, the price was increased because we put double wide ramps
Oh,
throughout the
yeah.
whole playground so that two children in wheelchairs can go up side by side next to each other. Because when you don't have a mobility device, you most likely will be running next to your friends. So if I'm in a mobility device, using a mobility device like a wheelchair or a walker or crutches, we put in double wide ramps. So those
Yeah.
two,
Yeah, so you don't
like,
always
yeah,
have to be behind someone else
right.
or
Yes. Or
right.
wait until they come down or yeah.
Right,
So yeah,
right.
or if
Yeah,
you're
makes
going in different
sense.
directions, I can pass you and you can pass me at the same time. So,
Yeah.
but again, that added more onto the cost because you're
Yeah.
adding more metal to the to the ramp. But it's so important the work that you're doing and just getting out there and traveling you and Stone and just getting into these different places to talk about this such important topic. So thank you again for sharing all of this on this episode of the podcast. It's been really great and uplifting to hear. So I'm excited for what is to come and to continue to follow your story there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Arthur. As
Yeah.
you could tell, it's a labor of love. And,
Hmm.
for those who are interested and if they want to learn more about the spelling
Yes.
to communicate methodology, there's a great free movie. It's a documentary that's on YouTube called Spellers, the movie, and they could just search for it, watch it for free. It covers a lot. It shows how non-speakers' lives have been changed through it. There's the book I mentioned before that introduced me to it. It's called Underestimated by
Hmm.
J.B. Hanley. There's a book written by a non-speaker a number of years ago that's still relevant called ITO, in Autism Land. And also then I'd say a couple of websites. There's iAsk, i-asc.org. That's the organization, that's kind of the umbrella, a nonprofit for Spelling to Communicate. A lot of great resources. And then the last one I would say is Communication for All, and that's the number four, communicationforall.org. Tons of great resources, including a way to order letter boards and also methodology for those who may not have access to practitioners, depending where they live. They give them lessons on how you can do it yourself, case studies, a lot of other great resources. And of course, they can also reach out to me. My website's David Kaufer, all one word, .com.
Great. Thank you so much, David, for this great conversation. Again, like I said, I'm looking forward to what is to come and to continue to follow your story and Stone's story of doing great things and advocating for this methodology and for non-speakers and just all the great work that you're doing. And I know it will continue to make change.
Well, thank you, Arthur. Thanks for
Yes.
giving us this platform and for your
Yes.
support. And we forever connected now. We will be in touch and
Yes. Yes,
keep you
absolutely.
posted.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Our View, the podcast, where we amplify the voices and stories of those in the disabled community, one conversation at a time. If this story moved you, taught you something new, or sparked a different perspective, we'd love to hear from you. Write a review of the podcast on Apple Podcast and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Follow us on all social media platforms at Our View for Life 25. At Our View, we believe that disability is not a limitation. It is a powerful part of the human experience. So until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep seeing the world through our view.